My name is Tanya. I'm sitting on a train, looking out at the dark window as it reflects my tired face. The train crosses the Charles River, and outside, Boston's financial district sparkles with evening lights. Skyscrapers stand tall, housing the companies I've invested in, the startups I've mentored, and the portfolio I've painstakingly built. But right now, all I can think about is what just happened at the Capitol Grill. The bar was in chaos. My phone was ringing off the hook, with calls from my parents, my older brother Ryan, and numbers I didn't recognize, probably board members or executives from Novatech, my family's company. The news had spread like wildfire. I'd just liquidated my entire $94,700,000 stake in Novatech, and it was about to cost them their planned IPO. My father burst into the bar, his face red and his breath coming in short gasps. "What the hell did you do?" he demanded. I looked at him calmly and said, "I sold my shares." He was incredulous. "Your shares? Tanya, you just tanked our IPO." I repeated, "I'm a shareholder. I'm allowed to do that." But he wouldn't let it go. "You're not just a shareholder. According to the SEC disclosure, you own 32% of Novatech. You were our largest investor." It all started when I received an invitation to the quarterly shareholder dinner at the Capitol Grill. I was excited, thinking it was a chance to be part of the family business. But when I arrived, there was no place card with my name. My father noticed me hovering in the doorway and his tone was laced with irritation. "What are you doing here?" I told him he'd sent me the invitation, but he waved it off. "That was a mistake. Sarah from my office must have added you to the distribution list by accident. This dinner is for actual investors." My mother looked up from her conversation with the CFO and chimed in. "Tanya, honey, this really isn't appropriate. These dinners are business-focused. You wouldn't understand the discussions." I tried to explain that I was a shareholder, but Ryan laughed. "Tanya, you own like what, 200 shares? That's barely worth the paperwork. This dinner is for people who actually matter to the company." I tried to defend myself, saying I owned more than 200 shares, maybe 500. But my father waved his hand impatiently. "Everyone at this table has invested significant capital in Novatech. Real money, life-changing money. You're here because you're family, not because you're a serious investor." My mother then came over to guide me away. "Sweetheart, I know you want to be involved, but you need to understand business dynamics. These people have risked millions. They deserve exclusive access to company updates and strategic discussions." I asked how much they'd invested, and she said it was confidential but whispered that the smallest investor had put in $2 million and most were in the $5 million to $10 million range. Ryan appeared behind her, playing the part of the perfect older brother. "Look, little sis, Mom and Dad are trying to be gentle. But this is embarrassing for them and for you. These are serious business people. They don't want to spend dinner explaining basic concepts to someone who works in community outreach." I told him I understood the concepts, but he scoffed. "You think you do? That's different. I have my Stanford MBA. I've spent 4 years as VP of Operations at Novatech. I live and breathe this stuff. You work at a nonprofit." It was true. I worked at the Boston Community Empowerment Fund, focusing on education initiatives. I'd founded the organization 6 years ago, right after graduating from MIT with a degree in social innovation. What they didn't know was that I'd funded the organization with $15 million from my first tech startup exit. I'd been quietly investing in Novatech since its series around 8 years ago. Through a network of shell companies and investment vehicles, I'd carefully built my position, keeping my identity hidden from the cap table. I'd been 21 at my first exit. I'd developed a mobile app for educational resource sharing during my junior year, and the state of Massachusetts had acquired it for $8 million. I'd used $5 million of that to invest in Novatech's Series A. At 23, my second company, a platform connecting schools with corporate sponsors, was acquired by Google for $31 million. I'd put $25 million of that into Novateca's Series B. At 25, a data analytics project turned into a proprietary algorithm that Amazon bought for $67 million. Another $40 million went into Novateca's Series C. By 26, I'd diversified into early-stage angel investments, cryptocurrency positions, and real estate. But Novatech remained my anchor investment. I'd supported my family's business from the shadows, while they treated me like the disappointing daughter who chose social work over real business. After being turned away at the dinner, I stood in the hallway, looking at my phone. I opened my banking app and saw my primary investment account at Cedar Capital Management, which showed current holdings of $340 million across various investments and asset classes. Novatech represented my single largest position, $94,700,000 invested across 5 different entities over 8 years. I called my portfolio manager, Alex Thompson. Alex, I need to liquidate my Novatech position. All of it. Every entity. There was a pause on the other end. That's $94,700,000 across 5 investment vehicles. May I ask why? I said, personal reasons. He then informed me of the consequences. Novatech is preparing for an IPO next quarter. Your position could be worth $200 million or more after they go public. Liquidating now means leaving significant value on the table. I told him I was aware. And he also said the liquidation would require SEC disclosure within 30 minutes, and the board would be notified, revealing my identity as the beneficial owner. I looked through the frosted glass at the dinner party I wasn't allowed to attend. My parents were laughing with their real investors, and Ryan was holding court, the golden child who'd done everything right. I said, execute the sale. All 5 entities immediately. Alex confirmed and said he'd begin the process. I then texted my lawyer, Lisa Harris. Lisa, I'm liquidating my Novatech position. We'll need documentation of beneficial ownership across all entities. How quickly can you compile? She replied that she had everything ready to go, updated that morning per standard quarterly review, and it would take her 20 minutes to finalize disclosure documents. I walked to the bar in the main dining room and ordered a whiskey, neat. The bartender poured a Macallan 18. I paid cash. As I sipped my whiskey, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Alex sent messages one after another. Eagle Holdings LLC liquidation initiated. $23,400,000 processing. Cascade Ventures LP liquidation confirmed. $19,200,000 transferred. My phone rang, but I declined the calls. Text messages from Ryan and my parents started pouring in. Ryan texted, "Call me right now." My mother texted, "Tanya, we need to talk. Please call immediately." My father texted, "Come back to the restaurant." I ignored them and ordered a second whiskey. Then, Lisa sent me the SEC disclosure documents. I opened the PDF. It showed my investment entities and holdings. Eagle Holdings LLC with 2,847,332 shares worth $23,400,000. Liquidated. Cascade Ventures LP with 2,334,19 shares worth $19,200,000. Liquidated. Sterling Capital Partners with 2,286,477 shares worth $18,800,000. Liquidated. Redwood Investment Group with 231,055 shares worth $16,700,000. Liquidated. Summit Equity Holdings with 219,834 shares worth $16,600,000. Liquidated. In total, I'd held 11,518,87 shares, 31.7% of the company, with a total investment value of $94,700,000, and now all positions were cleared. As I was finishing my third whiskey, my father appeared at the bar. The bar went silent as he demanded to know what I'd done. I explained that I'd spent 8 years investing in Novatech, while they'd dismissed me as a non-serious investor. Mom joined us, with Ryan right behind her. Several other dinner attendees filtered into the bar area, their expressions ranging from shocked to furious. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. "You've been our anchor investor this entire time?" I nodded. Ryan grabbed my arm. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? We're supposed to go public in 3 months. Our largest shareholder just dumped everything. The IPO is dead. The company's valuation is going to crater." I gently removed his hand and said, "Then you should have invited me to dinner." A man I recognized as John Miller, the lead partner from Blackstone Capital who'd led the Series C, stepped forward. "Ms. Tanya, we need to discuss this rationally. Your liquidation is going to trigger catastrophic consequences." I asked, "For whom?" He said, "For everyone. The other investors, the employees, the company itself. Your parents have built something remarkable over 12 years. You're going to destroy it." I replied, "I didn't build Novatech. My parents did. I just funded it. Apparently, that doesn't earn me a seat at the table." My mother had tears in her eyes. "Tanya, please. This is our life's work. Your father and I have poured everything into this company." I said quietly, "Not everything. I poured $94,700,000. You poured innovation and leadership. Both were necessary, but only one of us was dismissed as irrelevant." A woman from the dinner party, Emily Chen from an institutional investor group, spoke up. "The market is going to react very badly to this. A 32% liquidation rate before an IPO signals serious problems. Our fund will have to reassess our position." I told her it was her prerogative. She continued, "You're going to trigger a cascade. If we pull out, others will follow. The company could lose 60% of its value in a week." My phone buzzed with messages from Alex. Stock price down 23% in after-hours trading. News spreading fast. 3 institutional investors have requested emergency calls. 2 are discussing liquidation. I showed the messages to the group. My father collapsed onto a bar stool. I started to explain the history of my investments. 8 years ago, I invested $5 million in Series A when Novatech was worth $20 million. You were struggling for funding. Most VCs had passed. You were 3 months from bankruptcy. Then, during the 2020 recession, I invested another $25 million in Series B when your original investors got cold feet. That funding kept you operational through the pandemic. In Series C, I put in $40 million to fund your international expansion. Over the years, I've provided bridge financing, emergency capital, and patient money that never demanded board seats or operational control." John Miller said softly, the silent partner. "We always wondered who was behind those entities. They showed up at every critical moment, never asked questions, never interfered, just provided capital when we needed it most." "That was you, Tanya." Ryan's voice cracked. "This whole time?" I confirmed. "While you were getting your Stanford MBA, I was building and exiting companies. While you were climbing the corporate ladder at Novatech, I was managing a $340 million portfolio. While you were explaining to me how business works, I was funding your salary." My mother protested, "You never told us." I said, "I wanted to see if you'd value me for who I am, not for what I have. I wanted to know if my parents would respect my work, my choices, my contributions without knowing about the money." My father said it wasn't fair, but I countered, "Isn't it? You built a company worth $300 million. I'm proud of you. But tonight, you told me I don't belong at the table, that I'm not a serious investor, that I'm an embarrassment." Ryan shouted, "We didn't know." I said quietly, "Exactly. You didn't know and you treated me like I was worthless anyway. What does that say about how you evaluate people? If I'm not worth listening to when you think I'm a non-profit worker, but suddenly I'm important when you know I control 32% of your company. Your entire value system is broken. My phone rang. It was Lisa. I answered on speaker. Tanya, the SEC filing is public. Bloomberg just picked it up. TechCrunch is running a story. The headline is Novatech loses anchor investor ahead of planned IPO. It's going viral. She also said she was getting calls from 3 different law firms representing Novatech investors, asking if I was willing to discuss reversing the liquidation. I said I wasn't. A younger man, David Kim from Benchmark, pushed forward. We invested $8 million in Series C. Your liquidation just cost us $2 million in paper value. And if the IPO collapses, we could lose everything. I replied, then you should ask Novatech leadership why they alienated their largest investor. Over a dinner invitation. He was incredulous, and I corrected, over 8 years of dismissal. The dinner was just the final data point in a very long pattern. John Miller was on his phone, speaking in urgent tones. He ended the call and turned to my parents. The IPO underwriters want an emergency call tomorrow morning. They need to understand the stability of the shareholder base. What do we tell them? My mother asked desperately. I said, the truth. That your largest investor liquidated his position because company leadership told him he didn't belong at the table. That should make for an interesting prospectus disclosure. Ryan's face went from angry to calculating. How much would it take to reverse this? Name your price. I said, there is no price. I have $340 million. What I wanted was respect, basic human respect from my family, but apparently that was too much to ask. My father finally stood up. Tanya, please. I'm begging you. Don't destroy what we've built. I replied, I'm not destroying anything. I'm removing my capital from a company whose values don't align with mine. That's prudent portfolio management. My phone buzzed again. Alex sent a message, stock down 31%. Trading volume surging. Market expects further drops. Emily Chen ended her call with a grim expression. Our investment committee is recommending liquidation. If the anchor investor has lost confidence, we can't justify maintaining our position. One by one, the investors began announcing their decisions. In the span of 10 minutes, I watched $67 million in investment commitments evaporate. Ryan had gone pale. This is financial suicide for all of us. Tanya, you're destroying your own investment. I pointed out, I already liquidated at $822 per share. You'll notice the current after-hours price is $5.67. I exited at a profit. Everyone else is going to take a loss. John Miller said slowly, you knew this would happen. You knew liquidating would trigger a cascade. I said, I understood the probable outcomes. Yes. But this isn't revenge. This is consequences. There's a difference. My mother was crying openly. Tanya, I'm your mother. Doesn't that count for something? I replied, it counted for $94,700,000, which I invested because you're my mother. Because I believed in you. Because I wanted to support the family business. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, what's more important? Your daughter or the version of your daughter you wish existed? Lisa called again. Tanya, the story is exploding. Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Financial Times, everyone's covering it. The narrative is family rift destroys tech IPO. Novatech's PR team is getting destroyed. And several of your portfolio companies have reached out. They want to express support. They're offering to invest in your next ventures. They're also saying, this is why we trust Tanya. She doesn't tolerate disrespect even from family. My father's voice was hoarse. What do we do now? I said, you continue building Novatech. Without me, you find new investors who meet your standards. You explain to the IPO underwriters why your largest shareholder liquidated. You rebuild trust with the market. It'll take time, but you're capable leaders. You'll figure it out. My mother asked, and you? I said, I'm moving my capital to investments that appreciate competence regardless of its packaging. I have 17 companies in my portfolio that value my input. I'm expanding my angel investing. I'm starting a fund focused on overlooked founders, people who get dismissed because they don't have the right pedigree or background. People like me. As I stood up and left cash on the bar for my drinks and a generous tip, I said, the liquidation is complete. The SEC filings are public. My position is gone. Novatech will survive or it won't. But either way, it's no longer my problem. My father called after me, you're still my daughter. That doesn't change. I turned back and said, you're right. I'm still your daughter, which is why this hurts.